Hi, I'm Nicola Cairncross, and you're listening to the Money Gym podcast, where I interview successful entrepreneurs and investors and ask them if they could go back in time and give their younger selves one big tip about money, what would it be? I really hope you enjoy the show. Often described as Marmite for dentists, dental business coach and E-Myth dentist co-author Chris Barrow astonished us all by appearing on the Island with Bear Grylls Series 1. Very fit in his 60s, Chris describes himself as a road warrior, but he's scaling it back a bit after all that thinking time on the island. He's an active consultant, trainer and coach to the UK dental profession. Chris has spent over 20 years witnessing firsthand the trials and tribulations faced by dentists today. He combines a wealth of knowledge with the originality and independence needed to resolve the thorniest problems. Straight talking and determined, he can reach conclusions quickly, has the reflexes and lightness of touch to innovate, change tack and push boundaries. He's a dynamic, energetic and charismatic speaker with boundless enthusiasm for his field of expertise. His endless jokes and wicked Mancunian wit ensure there's never a dull moment. He walks his talk better than most by sharing both his strengths and vulnerabilities. He's committed to helping people succeed in their lives and businesses in less time than it took him and with greater ease. He was also one of my first business coaches, so I'm really pleased to welcome him to the show. We've talked about your business money there, but would you have any advice for new and aspiring entrepreneurs around their business money and their attitudes to money? What do you find are things? I know the answer to this because I read your blog post this morning. But what's the one or two things you would really like to share with new entrepreneurs about looking after their money and growing their money?
Well, I'm going to give them the advice that I never took. Which first of all was to take 30% of every paycheck and put it in a building society account, come what may. I didn't take that advice, which is why at the age of 60 I'm working as hard as I was 35 years ago. The second thing I think around money is to realise that it's extremely difficult to grow a business organically. In other words, to grow it from cash flow. And I have been successful in growing businesses organically. I've done it very well because it's very difficult to raise capital for a small business. And I've lived through a series of boom and bust cycles over the years that I've been in business. But there's been no bigger bust than the bust that took place in 2008. And we're still living in the middle of it. And so raising capital for business now is harder than it's been, with perhaps the exception of the IT sector, because, there's a huge movement to turn the United Kingdom generally and London particularly into the silicon capital of Europe. And there are huge government incentives in order to facilitate that. And so to anybody that's starting up in business and wondering what the hell to do, I think you can't escape the fact that the connected economy is a place where there is huge growth. I think healthcare is a place where there is huge growth, because I have to report to you that over the years that I've been alive, there's been absolutely no improvement in mortality statistics whatsoever, because it's still one death per person. And so the healthcare sector will be with us for a very long time. And after that, I think that we live in a society in which sport and leisure and health and hobbies and pastimes are becoming more and more and more important. And so being able to satisfy the demand for that has probably got some future.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I ask people about the money thing on the podcast, so many people say that this thing of putting aside a percentage of every bit of money that comes in, no matter how little it is in the early days, is just so crucial, because it does something psychologically to your subconscious. It tells you that you're ready to look after big money. And I know you're a big, keen fan of cash flow forecasting, and you religiously sit down, or you do now anyway, sit down and keep, update your spreadsheets and keep them really up to date so you know exactly where you are financially?
I do. Well, I've been bust in business on more than one occasion, and there have been times when I've actually wheeled a trolley around a supermarket with a calculator, counting down the amount of cash that I had in the pocket. So I know what it's like. First of all, I came from what you would describe as very humble working class beginnings, where my parents lived hand to mouth, and their parents before them did the same. Secondly, over my career, I've had periods where I've been absolutely bloody swimming in money, and I've had periods where money has been very scarce. And so I've learned to enjoy the former and manage the latter. And what that's left me with is a kind of a legacy where I'm pretty OCD about cash flow, and I sleep easy when I'm completely on top of it. And so one of my successful habits is to get up on a Sunday morning when I'm in the country, and to sit down and just spend half an hour a week updating the personal cash flow forecast, just so that I know exactly where I'm up to.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives me the peace of mind for the other 6.5 days of the week.
Yeah, and I do exactly the same once a week. I have my little weekly cash flow forecast and I reconcile it to what's happened in the bank. And I'm like you, it gives me a peace of mind for the rest of the week. And it also shows you what you need to focus on, doesn't it?
Well, sometimes I come, my office at home is in the basement, and sometimes on a Sunday morning I come staggering up the stairs and say it's going to be beans on toast for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And sometimes I come staggering up the stairs and say, why don't we book a weekend away?
Yeah.
And, that's what small business is about. It's about snakes and ladders, and being exactly cognizant of exactly where you are on the board of the snakes and ladders game is mission critical. Yeah. To expect that you're just going to roll the dice and go all the way to 100 on the first go is unrealistic.
Yeah.
You've got to keep rolling the dice, but recognise the fact there can be more than one time in your career where you're going to end up back at square one. That's where the phrase comes from.
Yeah.
And there are two things you can do at square one. The first thing you can do is get off the board, walk away from the game. And the second one is to pick the dice up again and roll.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross on the Money Gym podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the Money Gym and how we can help you become more financially intelligent, just come on over to themoneygym.com. We'll see you over there.